nothing to do with the Holocaust. 90 years before the Holocaust, the notion that a racist Europe that doesn't want to have Jews in it is willing to help the Jews from Europe to displace the Palestinian and replace them. It's incredible if you think about it. And a lot of good people on both sides of the Atlantic and also in Europe itself were wondering whether this is morally valid. In fact, they were not even sure that this was politically valid, because in the whole of the 19th century, in fact, until the outbreak of the First World War, Palestine was not part of Europe. It was part of the Ottoman Empire. So it even didn't look realistic. What is incredible, and I try to show in the book, how the crucial moment for Palestine and the Palestinians, again, without anyone in Palestine knowing it, which really boggles the mind, that you have these Palestinians sitting in the cities, in the countryside, not knowing even during the First World War that their fate was actually already decided. In the very crucial years between 1915 and 1917, Palestine is no more part of the Ottoman Empire, it becomes part of the British Empire. And the big question that Britain has to ask itself, do I want a Palestine that is part of an Arab world under British control? Or do I want, as the Zionist movement is trying to push me, to take Palestine out of the Arab world, make it part of Europe, and create a European Jewish state in the Middle East? And that's when the Zionist lobby really becomes powerful. Between 1915 and 1917, it was not difficult to convince Britain to include Palestine in the new British Empire. It was difficult to convince Britain that the best thing for Britain is that Palestine would be Jewish and European. And they succeeded because there were enough anti-Semites in Britain, there were enough anti-Semite Jews in Britain who said, we need the Jews from Russia to go to Palestine. God forbid they will come to London. And this is something that eventually brought something you all know about, the Balfour Declaration, when Britain produces this unbelievable document that promises something that did not belong to Britain and gave it to someone it didn't belong to, the Zionist movement. And yet, even in the first 30 years of British rule in Palestine, the Zionist movement was not strong enough, contrary to what historians write. The Zionist movement was not strong enough to take over Palestine. We have to remember this. One of the reasons the Palestinian leaders and politicians were surprised in the Nakba in 1948 was that objectively they looked at the Jewish community in Palestine, of the settlers, who were 1/3 of the population, and they looked at the Arab world around them, and they said, these people will not defeat us. When the British would leave, Palestine would be for the Palestinians, Iraq would be for the Iraqis, Syria would be for the Syrians, and Lebanon would be for the Lebanese. It looked logical, it looked possible. Again, not understanding, and I don't blame them, I'm not sure I would have understood, that again there was already a powerful Christian and Jewish lobby that made sure that these facts on the ground didn't count. They were not important. What was important that the new superpower of the world, the United States, were now convinced, like Britain before, that when Britain leaves Palestine, Palestine cannot be for the Palestinians. It has to be a Jewish state. Unfortunately, the Soviet Union supported this idea as well. Now, if you have, during the Cold War, when the two superpowers in Berlin are fighting each other, and they agree about only one thing, You know, the Soviet Union and the United States did not agree about anything. They were fighting in Korea, they were fighting in Berlin, they were fighting in Latin America, they were fighting everywhere. In half an hour, they agreed about the fate of Palestine, that it should be a Jewish state. Unbelievable if you think about it. And I keep thinking about the Palestinians. Even if they had the best leadership in the world, even if they were the best army in the world, how can they face an international coalition of the two superpowers that says, for whatever reasons, and the reasons are not always the same reasons, there has to be a Jewish state in Palestine?